Three spine-chilling tales of haunted night workers discover the sinister darkness exposed. Every night, Anna's shifts in the abandoned hospital felt like a descent into a waking nightmare. Shadows darted just beyond the edges of her vision, and the chill of the cold, stale air clung to her skin. Alone in the flickering darkness, each haunting beep of the machines echoed with chilling clarity, a reminder that she was the sole guardian of a place long forgotten by life. The tale spun in whispers around town only grew more vivid, closing in on her like a tightening noose. Locals claimed that the spirits of the people once lost within these walls now sought revenge on the living. Outside, Brad walked the empty halls of the old school, his flashlight beam bouncing off cracked walls and tarnished lockers. The first few nights, he welcomed the creaks and groans as part of the building's age. But now, each calloused gust of wind flowing through shattered windows felt more insidious, more taunting. Last week, he caught a glimpse of something, a fleeting shadow that slipped just out of reach. It sent a jolt of dread through him. He told himself it was exhaustion, but still, his heart raced at the idea of what lay hidden in those shadowy corners. Then there was Mia, the bus driver who found herself navigating through twisted streets, her sparse passengers growing eerily silent as they piled on. Ghostly faces flitted through her rearview mirror, only to vanish the moment she turned her head. Her gut churned as she recalled the stories of folks disappearing at this hour. Just last week, she had picked up a young girl who vanished without a trace, leaving Mia white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Was she just tired, or was there something more sinister lurking behind her wheel? Panic set in one fateful night when all three found themselves working, either at the hospital, patrolling the school, or driving through the dimly lit town. A cold wind swept through them, binding their fates. Hours into their shifts, they each received a cryptic note, scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Stay away from the dark. Eyes are watching." They gathered over coffee to share their experiences, the weight of fear pulling down their shoulders. "This isn't just a coincidence," Anna's voice trembled, and it ignited a connection between them, a resolve to dig deeper. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they delved into the twisted history of their workplaces, the tension tightened like a noose around their necks. The lore grew darker, the disappearances, the murders across decades, all leading back to a single malevolent figure, their own neighbor, a man once loved by the community. Threads of unease laced their hearts. They were mere pawns in a hideous game, with no way out but to face the predator lurking beneath the surface. As the night wore on, the walls whispered secrets that sent chills down their spines. Familiar streets transformed into distorted hallways where twisted shadows danced, shoving them closer to an unavoidable confrontation. A scream echoed in the distance, shattering the silence. A reminder that not all monsters hide under beds. Some wear uniforms. With their hearts hammering in their chests, they now knew the past was no longer behind them. It was closing in. What would they do as the night's suffocating grip tightened? Would they find the strength to confront the darkness, or would they become its next lost souls? Anna leaned heavily against the hospital wall, her breath quickening as the shadows seemed to shift and writhe. The dim light flickered, momentarily revealing figures in the darkness, before plunging her back into eerie silence. The cold air was thick with dread, each heartbeat echoing like distant thunder in her ears. "We have to go back," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but resolved. Brad's eyes darted from one corner of the room to another. What if we get caught? It's not safe here. The stories. His voice trailed off into uneasy silence. The weight of each unsolved mystery pressed down on them. Mia, clutching her coffee cup until her fingers burned, looked from one friend to the other. We can't just ignore this. If there's a chance, if there's a spirit or whatever. Those aren't just stories anymore, Brad interjected, shaking his head. What if it's true? What if that thing is watching us right now? A gust of wind seemed to sweep through the coffee shop, as if in response. The front door creaked open on its own, revealing an ink-black void beyond. They instinctively moved closer, huddling as if in a protective circle. Anna felt a chill creep along her spine, a prickle of danger igniting her senses. No more running. We need to confront the shadows. Mia nodded, her expression one of deep fear mixed with determination. Let's head back to our places, but let's stick together. We need to find a way to confront whatever is haunting us. Without further discussion, they decided on their route. First, the hospital. Anna led the way, the others nervously trailing behind. The closer they got, the more reality seemed to warp. The shadows grew, elongating menacingly, and the air thickened with a malevolent presence. Each step felt like a step deeper into the jaws of an unseen beast. Inside the hospital, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, competing against the oppressive silence. Anna could feel eyes on her, unfathomable and cold. She turned to her companions.
We should split up. We'll cover more ground this way. No way! Brad's voice crackled with panic. That's not the best idea. We should stick together. But Anna was already moving, her resolve stronger than her fear. Trust me, if I find something, I'll call. With a lump in her throat, she walked away, familiarity and dread intertwining in her chest. The walls loomed like guardians of buried secrets, but she knew she had to dig deeper. Every shadow seemed alive, twisting and curling as if they were reaching for her. As she rounded a corner, the hospital's old surgical room came into view. With each step, her pulse quickened. She could feel something lurking just beyond the threshold. The door creaked open. Was that her imagination, or was it beckoning her closer? Suddenly, a cold breath seeped through her, freezing her in place. Whispers curled around her, indistinct but laced with malice. Stay away from the dark. A surge of defiance flared. What do you want? She cried into the darkness. There was a pause. Then the shadows shifted and grew, melding into a figure that coalesced before her. A face emerged, grotesque and twisted, the eyes hollow and dark. The same eyes that had watched her, her friends, everyone. Meanwhile, in the halls of the school, Brad and Mia had their own encounter. They stumbled upon a collection of tattered papers strewn across the gym floor. As Mia bent down to pick one up, words flickered into view, written in frantic scrawl. The darkness will claim you all. A clang echoed through the empty space, and Brad whipped around, heart racing. Did you hear that? No answer came, just the oppressive weight of silence that felt even more suffocating now. Outside, the wind howled, ushering in a confrontation neither group was prepared for. As shadows danced and the whispers grew louder, they realized this was no mere ghost story. They were about to awaken something far more sinister. And as they felt the walls around them conspire, the chilling question rang out in the dark. Would they survive to uncover the truth, or become just another part of the nightmare? The figure before Anna hung ominously in the air, a grotesque mockery of life carved from inky shadows. Her heart raced violently as it loomed closer, each ragged breath echoing her shock. A sense of impending doom washed over her. "Get back!" she shouted, instinct instinctually flaring, even as the darkness pulled at her sanity. In the gym, Brad and Mia pressed against the cold concrete wall, feeling the tremors from Brad's panicked heartbeat reverberating through their bodies. "What was that noise?" he whispered, eyes wide. Mia's brow furrowed as she cautiously scanned the room. Maybe it was just... The clang rang out again, sharper this time, closer. A metal clattering, as though someone or something was very much alive, lurking just out of sight. "We shouldn't be here," Brad breathed, dread wrapping around him like a vice. "Anna is..."
"Alone in the hospital," Mia murmured, biting her lip. "We have to find her, now." Back in the hospital, Anna's voice trembled as she demanded an answer from the grotesque figure. "What do you want from us?" It didn't reply. Instead, it outstretched spindly fingers, reaching toward her with slow, deliberate intent. The air cooled, thickening with a weight that suffocated as dread pooled in her stomach. Time seemed to distort. Seconds stretched into agonizing minutes. She couldn't move. She could only watch as the shadows writhed around the figure like snakes poised to strike. Then came the whispers again, now sharper, piercing her thoughts with fractured echoes of her name. "Anna, Anna." Before she could react, something icy brushed against her ear, a promise of despair. "You shouldn't have come back." In the gym, Brad and Mia moved, hearts pounding loud enough to drown out their thoughts. The shadows pooled into corners, and reality warped under their fear. They hastily navigated through the maze of broken furniture and scattered papers, desperately retracing their steps to the exit. "Anna," Mia called out, voice trembling but resilient. No response, only an unsettling silence that deepened their wretched anxiety. "Check the hallway," Brad shouted, darting toward a doorway that led deeper into the school, the flickering emergency lights casting menacing shapes on the walls. But Anna's own urgency had gripped her. Stepping backward, she turned to the door leading into the surgical room, the last remnants of her courage pushing her through the threshold. "I am not afraid of you," she yelled, reclaiming her voice. The figure shuddered, its form shifting between materials. Flesh? Smoke? Darkness? Each change felt like an attempt to fracture her mind. "Face us," she shouted, her voice echoing back as if mocking her resolve. But something shifted. The figure blurred and split into countless smaller shadows. Hissings and mutterings reached her ears, as if the darkness spoke in a language only the cursed could understand. "Anna," they whispered, their voices intertwining in ghastly symphony. "You belong to us." Suddenly, the lights flickered more violently, showering the room in intermittent bursts of clarity and darkness. Anna staggered, her breath hitching as she gripped the edge of an old, rusty surgical table, its surface marred with reminders of horrors long buried. Thoughts of escaping poured into her mind, but one distinct whisper coiled around her resolve. "You cannot escape what watches you." Brad and Mia found themselves in a doorway, peering into the hospital that loomed larger than life, more alive than ever. "Anna's in there," Brad said, voice low but steely. Mia shivered as she looked at him. What if she's already? The suggestion hung heavily between them. "No," Brad shouted, galvanizing himself. "We have to save her." They stepped through the door into the chaos of flickering lights, chasing shadows, fear permeating the air like a living entity. Each step echoed louder in the solemn silence, drowning out their own frantic thoughts. A cold certainty gripped them. They had awakened something primal, more ancient than the stories. And as Anna faced the dark figure, summoning every piece of her strength, the question remained suspended in the stale air. How far would she go to confront her fears before they consumed everything she held dear? The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair that wrapped around Anna like a shroud. "You cannot escape what watches you." The shadows encircled her, pulsating with malevolence, shifting as if alive, hungry.
Panic surged within her, a primal instinct to flee, but the weight of the figure's presence, looming and oppressive, rooted her in place. Suddenly, the shadows lunged. She felt them rake against her skin, a cold anguish washing over her. She gasped, stumbling back, her fingers slipping from the rusty surgical table. Memories, half-formed and tainted by nightmares, flickered before her eyes. Dark hallways, silent screams, reflections of sorrow. Each vision clawed at her sanity, a torment from which she could not wake. Anna. The voice was smoother now, like silk laced with poison. It came from everywhere, a chorus of temptations that tantalized her with the promise of shelter from fear. She couldn't afford to listen. Clenching her jaw, she turned, the flickering lights casting broken reflections on the walls. The doorway, her escape, seemed penned in shadows that writhed and coiled as if alive. She hurled herself toward it, adrenaline fueling her flight, heart hammering in her chest. At that same moment, Brad and Mia plunged deeper into the hospital, pushing past the threshold that felt like entering another dimension. The air was thick with a sour chill and echoes of distant cries. "Anna!" Mia called again, fear sharpening her voice. "Keep calling," Brad urged, but his voice cracked under the pressure of the oppressive silence. As they moved, every corner revealed more darkness, more uncertainty. Shapes loomed and distorted, the shadows appearing to stretch beyond comprehension. "We're running out of time," Mia hissed, urgency clawing at her throat, her instincts screaming for them to stand still. "Look," Brad pointed, down a rapidly descending hallway lined with old surgical lights that buzzed like angry flies. They followed instinct, edging deeper into the hospital's belly, heartbeats synced in a frantic rhythm. Meanwhile, Anna was collapsing against the door as a cold wave hit her. The figure morphed, stretching, distorting into something unrecognizable. Every flicker of light revealed a new semblance of terror. Panic surged again. She felt the soft whisper of death brush against her neck. Suddenly, a brilliant shaft of light exploded from a nearby window, illuminating the figure with a blinding glow. Its form recoiled, shrieking in an unholy chorus. "You cannot hold on to hope," it wailed, voice splitting the already warped air. Anna took the chance, lunging toward the window, feeling the sting of desperation fill her lungs. "Anna!" The sound of her name, familiar and strong, broke the spell binding her. Focusing on the voices that echoed from beyond, she ripped the window open. She needed to get out, to breathe. "I'm coming!" she shouted, flinging herself through the pain. Brad and Mia were led by that same call when they reached the stark blue light illuminating the room. As it broke into view, they saw Anna tumble through the window, her form sprawled on the ground. But something wasn't right. Behind her, the figure drew closer, dark clouds swirling hungrily. "Anna, get up!" Brad shouted, but she lay frozen, shimmering in the dying light, eyes wide with horror. Before they could process it, shadows surged from the figure, sweeping towards them, a tidal wave of darkness eager for life. "Run!" Mia screamed, grabbing Anna's arm, yanking her away from the slithering grasp of the nightmare. But the shadows pulsed like a heartbeat, rising, reaching, determined to catch them all. As they stumbled backwards, hearts racing, questions spiraled in the suffocating darkness. Had they awakened something that could never be contained? Would they be the next to belong to the dark? And as the storm of shadows leaped forth, the despairing whispers filled the air once more, a chilling reminder. You belong to us. Adrenaline surged through Anna's veins like electric fire. She clawed her way out of the haze, but panic pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. "I can't stay here. We have to go." She pulled both Brad and Mia forward, struggling against the pull of the shadows that writhed behind them, hungry and relentless. "Keep moving," Brad yelled, his voice strained. The darkness flickered like flames, chasing them with a sinister intent. They dashed down the corridor, the oppressive chill threatening to swallow them whole. Anna glanced back. A mistake. The figure had transformed into a twisted silhouette, features indistinct, but eyes glimmered like pits of despair, latched onto her like an unholy beacon. A wave of dread hit her. Mia's grip tightened on Anna's arm. "We need to find a way out, fast." "Where?" Anna gasped. "Every direction looks the same." Fear laced her voice, an echo of the dark thoughts swirling around her. The hallway split into a series of intermingling paths, each one cloaked in relentless shadows. Brad stopped, panting. "Which way?" A shiver coursed through Anna as whispers slithered through the air, their insidious laughter dancing around her. "Over here. Come to us." The shadows beckoned, an illusion of safety, but Anna swayed, instinct screaming for her to resist. "Don't listen!" Mia shouted, staring unblinkingly at the encroaching darkness, wrestling the panic creeping into her voice. She noticed how the shadows swirled, feeding off their fear. "This way!" They veered left, following Mia's direction. The air grew thick, almost a substance of despair, clinging to them like wet cotton. Each footfall echoed, mocking their escape. Suddenly they stumbled upon a room, locked tight, but a flicker of light shimmered beneath the door. "Do you think we can break it down?" Brad asked, looking over his shoulder at the looming shadows, their shapes elongating, eager for their prey. "No, we'll alert it," Anna countered, the fear of what lurked behind their backs paralyzing her thoughts. "We need to hide." The three pressed against the door, the chill behind them coiling closer, palpable and breathing. The whispers grew more frantic and confused, like a storm building. Panic radiated off them like an electrical charge. "Why did we come here?" Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. "Why did we think we'd be safe?" "There has to be something we can do," Brad said, his voice quaking. His eyes darted around desperately as though reading something invisible in the walls. "We need a plan. We can't let it catch us." Just then, the whispers shifted. They turned softer, a honeyed promise. "You don't have to fight. Give in." "Shut up," Mia shouted, tears of rage and fear brimming in her eyes. "We're not giving in." Anna felt her mind teetering. The oppressive urge to listen, to succumb, was almost overpowering. "We can't let it win." She shook her head violently, as if trying to dispel the dark thoughts clouding her mind. But the darkness thickened, pressing in closer. The shadows began to pulse, a heartbeat of deadness. They drew nearer, the noise growing like a crescendo of a malignant symphony, demanding their surrender. "Help me! I can't!" Anna cried out, the pressure too heavy. She felt a tether breaking. And then, silence. The shadows halted, as if holding their breath. "What's happening?" Brad whispered, the tension causing his voice to tremble. Mia glanced down the corridor, eyes narrowing. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it won't last long." Before Anna could respond, the door they pressed against trembled violently, rattling as if something on the other side wanted to join their nightmare. "Get ready," Brad said, bracing himself. "What's about to come through?" Anna quaked, heart racing. In that moment of stillness, the darkness coiled tighter, ready to strike. Anna closed her eyes, praying they'd weather the storm. But the wretched weight of dread seeped in, the kind that came from knowing they were not safe, not by any means. And then came a resounding crash, splintering the air as the door flew open. Darkness spilled forth like a physical force, hungry and howling, and she realized they had awoken something far worse. The shadows surged forward, a wave of despair clutching at their legs. "Run!" a voice echoed from within the storm, but light began to dwindle. What if there was no escape, no way out? As their breaths quickened, each heartbeat matched the gnawing fear that they were about to become part of the darkness. And suddenly, Anna felt something pull at her, an unseen hand, cold as death itself.
What lay beyond the threshold of that door? Would it lead to salvation or to eternal night? Anna's heart pounded, each beat a frantic drum echoing in her ears. The shadow poured from the doorway, thick and suffocating, lacing its fingers around her ankles like icy chains. She couldn't tell where the tangible darkness
ended and the fear within her began. Panic surged as her mind raced. "Get away from her!" Brad shouted, lunging forward. He reached for Anna, but the shadows wrapped tighter, a desperate grip that felt alive. "No!" she screamed, fighting against the pull. Brad managed to yank her free for a moment, but the darkness writhed, changing tactics. Instead of dragging her down, it surged towards Brad, snatching at him like a frenzied beast. "Mia!" Anna cried, but Mia was already hunched down, desperately trying to pry open a window in the nearby room. Sweat dripped down her forehead, mingling with the hysteria in her eyes. "That won't hold them!" Brad yelled, glancing back and forth, weighing the threat before him. The room trembled under the malevolent energy of the shadows, as if bathed in a storm of pure anguish. "We need to go!" Mia shook against the window latch, her breath hitching as a low, guttural growl echoed through the room. The shadows twisted, shifting like a serpent coiling around them. "Help!" she shouted, her voice cracking. "It's too strong!" With a furious tug, she forced the window open, the squeal of old metal almost lost in the chaos. Wind whipped into the room like a breath of fresh air, but it carried chill as well as urgency. "Brad, we have to jump!" Anna shouted, urgency giving her voice a sharp edge. "No, we—" But the growl turned into a roar, a sound that rumbled like thunder in their chests. The shadows lunged, a torrent of inky darkness determined to swallow them all whole. "Now!" Mia yelled, already climbing out of the window. "We're coming!" Anna grabbed Brad and pulled him toward the open frame. But as they approached, the shadows clawed at their heels, bristling with fury. Each lash of darkness igniting in Anna's mind like a blow. Desperation thrummed in her veins. She had to save them. Anna glanced back, catching a glimpse of the torn figure emerging from the storm, the ghastly silhouette lurching forward, its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. It lunged toward them, a manifestation of their darkest fears. Brad shoved Anna hard, pushing her through the window. "Go!" he roared, then turned back to face the nightmare looming behind him. "No!" she screamed, panic propelling her heart to thunder even louder. Mia reached out, pulling Anna closer to her, but they were just two against the clutches of despair. They landed on cold concrete, the warmth of the building lost behind them. The air was biting, but at least they could breathe. They scrambled to their feet, but dared not turn back. "Where do we go?" Mia panted, eyes darting everywhere as the shadows thrashed against the window. "Anywhere but here," Anna replied, taking off, heart racing. They dashed towards the looming trees outside the building, their branches weaving together like gnarled fingers. Anna felt the weight of the shadows, still lingering, whispering promises of surrender in the back of her mind. Suddenly, the earth shook beneath them, a violent tremor that sent Mia stumbling. "What's happening?" A jagged crack erupted through the ground, furious and wide, splitting the earth like a gaping mouth. The shadows poured through, undulating and relentless, creating a dark vortex that sucked in everything close. "They're coming!" Brad shouted, panic drawing his voice tight. "Run!" Anna screamed, urgency thrumming through her veins. They bolted further into the forest, but the darkness extended, creeping after them, serpentine and alive. Anna could feel it clawing at her sanity, whispering, beckoning her to look back, to cease the fight. But ahead, through the trees, a flicker of light danced. A beacon? Hope? "Follow me!" Anna shouted, racing toward it. With each step, the ground writhed, each heartbeat echoing the shadow's pursuit. Was this light salvation or another snare? The air pulsed with tension as they raced toward the looming glow. Just as hope flickered in Anna's chest, she stumbled.
Help! The ground erupted, shadows surged like a tidal wave, and a voice, deep and commanding, hissed from the dark. You will never escape. As Anna's vision blurred, she felt cold air envelop her. Was this the end, or just the beginning of something darker? And before everything faded to black, one thought screamed in her mind. What if the shadows weren't just chasing them, but were already within? Anna gasped, the icy grip of darkness fading, but the frigid air wrapped around her like a shroud. She found herself lying on damp earth, sunlight filtering through thick branches above. It felt like a dream, yet the pounding in her chest proved otherwise. Anna, Mia's frantic voice broke through the daze. She was kneeling beside her, a wild look of fear painted across her face. Get up, they're not far behind. Shaking her head, Anna pushed herself to her feet, scanning their surroundings. They were in a clearing surrounded by towering trees, their twisted, blackened forms looming like sentinels. But there was no sign of Brad. Where's Brad? Anna's voice trembled. Mia's eyes darted to the shadows at the edge of the clearing. I don't know. He must have gotten lost in the dark. Lost? He can't be. We have to find him. A rush of adrenaline surged through her, pushing aside the lingering chill. Look, Mia pointed toward the thicket on the opposite side. We have to get to that cabin. It could be a way out. Anna hesitated, her heart pounding in her ears. What if it's a trap? But before Mia could answer, a chilling growl reverberated through the air. The shadows shifted, gathering strength at the tree line like dark fog. Anna felt her body seize, fear clawing at her guts. Now! Mia screamed, grabbing Anna's arm and pulling her forward. They raced toward the cabin, the sound of their frantic footsteps mingling with a chorus of hissing whispers that seemed to echo from the shadows behind them. The cabin loomed ahead, a decrepit structure half concealed by vines and
foliage. Its windows were dark, the door swung open slightly, inviting their weary bodies inside. But there was a weight in the air, a palpable dread that filled Anna's lungs with each breath. Please, please be safe, Mia muttered as they crossed the threshold. Inside, the atmosphere thickened. Dust motes danced in the beams of fading light, casting eerie patterns on the floor. The walls were bare, warning signs of abandonment apparent in the peeling paint and crumbling wood. "Brad!" Anna called, her voice echoing in the silence. The feeling of isolation clawed at her. The shadows seemed to pulse just beyond the door, inches from reaching them. A creak behind them made Anna spin around, her heart lodged in her throat. A figure emerged from the dimness. Brad, panting, his clothes tattered, and eyes wide with terror. "I thought I lost you guys," he gasped, relief flooding his features. "Close the door," Mia yelled, her voice urgent. Brad slammed the door shut, just as the shadows began to inch into the cabin, curling around the frame like claws. But they weren't out of danger yet. The room darkened, becoming a vortex of swirling shadows. Anna's breath quickened as she noticed an intricate symbol etched into the floor, pulsing with an ominous energy. "What is that?" Brad asked, stepping back, his heart racing. "I don't know," Anna breathed, "but whatever it is, it's not good." Suddenly, the figure of a ghastly woman appeared between them, her translucent form shimmering with the color of despair. Her face twisted into a gnawed expression of sorrow and fury. "You've come to feed the darkness," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody. Anna felt her knees buckle, the shadows whispering promises of surrender again. The cabin walls began to close in, suffocating and swirling, as Brad's terrified scream broke through the symphony of shadows. "We have to fight it!" Brad yelled, but his voice seemed powerless against the wailing specter. "No!" Anna shouted, scrambling for a way out of the madness. But each passing second felt like an eternity. shadows drawing nearer, the vision of the woman morphing into something hideous. They had come to crawl into the belly of despair, but how could they escape when their very fears had become reality? As Anna's vision dimmed around the edges, she felt the shadows reaching for her. And in that moment, she realized it wasn't just her fears they were feeding on. It was her very soul. "Together!" Mia screamed as a crack of light burst from the symbol. Anna reached out, but the light flickered dangerously, the shadows beginning to laugh, a sound like teeth grinding on bone, mocking their fragile hope. What lay on the other side of that light? Was it escape or something worse? The shadows hissed again, drowning out her thoughts. And then everything went dark. Tendrils of darkness snaked around Anna, pressing in on her mind, squeezing every ounce of courage left. Mia screamed, pierced through the void, echoing in her ears as the shadows swirled like a tempest. "Focus!" Mia gasped, eyes locked onto the crack of light that pulsed from the symbol on the floor. It flickered like a dying flame, desperation coiling around them. "We have to believe!" "I can't!" Anna cried out, feeling a weight dragging her down. The ghastly woman flickered, her form wavering toward them, lips twisted into a smirk that sent cold chills slicing through Anna's spine. As the shadows grew bolder, Brad shouted, "We need to say something, anything to push it back." Mia nodded, her face pale but resolute. "Together, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Light!" They shouted in unison, their voices breaking through the cacophony of whispers. The crack of light flared in response, pushing against the encroaching darkness. The specter recoiled, its form flickering like an old film reel, distorted, twisted, writhing in rage. But the shadows howled back, a sinister laughter that shook the walls. "You think you can banish me with your simple words?" The woman sneered, her voice mixing with the whispers around them. "Foolish mortal children!" Brad hesitated. "What if we're not strong enough?" "No!" Anna's voice rose above her doubt, fiery resolve igniting within her. "We have to fight for our lives!" And as if responding to her desperation, the light pulsed once more, illuminating the corners of the cabin, the edges of an unseen battle. The shadows recoiled, but they were not retreating, they were gathering. They coiled tightly, congregating in a thick, dark mass wavering just beyond the threshold. Mia grasped Anna's wrist, pulling her closer. "Focus! Picture something bright!" Anna squeezed her eyes shut. Her mind raced, searching for a memory, a time when she felt safety. "The beach," she whispered, "waves crashing, the sun." The moment the words left her lips, the symbol exploded with blinding light, illuminating every inch of the cabin, chasing back the darkness for a heartbeat, revealing walls engraved with frights barely visible in the dim. But just as quickly, shadows began to seep in again, siphoning the warmth of the light. The woman's laughter crescendoed, drowning out the escaping hope. "You will succumb to the darkness. All your light belongs to me." As Anna stumbled backward, she brushed against something cold and sharp. A weathered knife was lodged in the floorboards, its blade glinting in the light. Desperate, she grabbed it, hoisting it in front of her. "We can't just wait for it to eat us alive!" Brad's eyes widened as the woman extended an ethereal hand toward them. "You aim to challenge the shadows? So deliciously naive. You'll suffer for your folly." "No, we're done feeling afraid," Brad said, finding his own courage. He stepped beside Anna, determination hardening his features. Anna closed her eyes, focusing on the light pulsing from the symbol. A vision of the sun shone in her mind, filling her with warmth. "On 3 again?" They nodded. Together they said, "Light!" as she thrust the knife towards the symbol, hoping its steely resolve would cut through the terror that encircled them. The knife pierced into the center of the symbol, and a wave of energy surged around them.
The room began to tremble, the shadows screaming louder, shaking the very walls. The ghastly woman's visage twisted into something horrific as the shadows burst forth, flailing and writhing around them. "You take what is mine," she howled, her voice blending into a chaotic symphony of rage. But the trio pressed on, feeling the pulse's energy connect to their hearts as if they could draw strength from each other. What would happen if they failed? Would the shadows claim them forever? And then it hit her, a sharp realization that twisted in her gut. The knife's metal wasn't just a tool to cut shadows, it had the essence of light embedded deep within it. Together, Anna breathed again, steeling her heart against the terror that clawed at her mind. We won't give in. Outside, the shadows continued to whirl, but inside, the blinding light surged brighter. Anna, Mia, and Brad united their fears, hoarding the collective hope that glimmered in the space between them. But as the power grew, Anna realized there was something else gathering on the other side of that light, something darker, something that had been waiting for its moment. "Turn back!" the shadows shrieked, their screeching reverberating through the cabin as the walls began to crack. "You cannot hold on forever!" In that moment, amid their desperate charge toward salvation, Anna's heart faltered as doubt crept back in. What if they had stirred something even worse? What if the light was not the answer, but a gate to something far more sinister? And then, from the growing rift behind the blinding light, a new abyss began to form, an insatiable hunger whispering the secrets of souls long lost. What awaited them on the other side? Could they really break free, or would they unleash a far greater terror? The light pulsed again, vibrating through the floor and up their legs, almost as if the cabin were alive. The dark mass shuddered, pushed and pulled by some unseen force. Anna watched in horror, the glow exposing the walls with their horrible carvings, a testament to despair and despair's eventual acceptance. Faces contorted in agony surrounded them, eyes wide, mouths silent yet screaming. "Keep pushing!" Mia shouted, as the shadows danced angrily, coiling at the edges of the light, snapping like vicious dogs on a leash. But instead of retreating, the darkness swarmed closer, whispering to one another in a language that sent cold dread spiraling through Anna. They could not understand the words, but the meaning seeped into her bones. "You will fail." "Anna!" Brad's voice broke through her panic, grounding her. "Keep the focus. We have to show it we're not afraid." But fear wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing tightly. What if this darkness was all-consuming? What if their cries of light wouldn't be enough? Then, from the center of the flickering glow, a faint shape began to emerge, a figure cloaked in shadow, an echo of the ghastly woman, only this one seemed smaller, more disfigured. It was hunched and wretched, its skeletal fingers clawing at the air. "Release me!" it screeched, the pitch of its voice splitting the air like glass. "You cannot hold it back forever. Join us, embrace the void, and be free." "Don't listen!" Mia screamed, her voice breaking as she pressed her palms against the crack in the floor. The light flickered in discomfort. Brad shouted back, "Focus on the warmth of the sun. Feel the sand. It's still there, deep inside you." Anna's heart raced. She swayed on the brink of madness, caught between the beast that hissed at her mind and her friends who were fighting for their lives. With a surge of adrenaline, Anna thrust the knife deeper into the symbol, and the light intensified around them, a wall of undeniable brilliance that swallowed the shadows like a raging flame. The walls cracked, exposing the true nature of the cabin. It was nothing more than a facade of malice, hiding an abyss behind it. "Trust in each other," Anna shouted, desperation igniting courage. They locked eyes, a silent vow passed between them. This was it, their light against the boil of darkness. Together they yelled, "Light!" The sound echoed off the walls, shaking the very foundation of their fears.
But the shadows howled back, swelling with rage. Faceless heads formed from the writhing mass, each one screaming in unison. "You will join us! Your light will be extinguished!" In a deafening rush, they felt the shattering impact of the darkness attempting to claw its way in. Fingers of despair brushing against their skin, cold and clammy. The sensation pierced through the flickering bravery, threatening to snuff it out. "Hold on!" Mia shrieked, but Anna could feel herself unraveling under the weight of dread. Then, almost as if responding to her inner turmoil, the knife began to glow. A fierce light that pulsed brighter than any star, illuminating everything it touched. Yet something more permeated the air. A sense of dread and hunger rippled through the light, as if aware of the very souls it sought to protect. "It's feeding on our fear," Anna realized, her heart racing. The light started to dim, flickering like a candle threatened by a gust of wind. "No!" she gasped, her breath hitching. "We have to believe, all of us!" But the abyss behind the light shifted, a dark figure bold and dreadful rising from the depths. It was bigger than before, an incursion of shadows hungrily swirling in a vortex, gnashing its teeth. Its eyes burned with a hunger that could devour the very existence of bright thoughts. The floor beneath them trembled violently, threatening to split apart as the juxtaposition of light and dark hurtled toward a breaking point. "Look!" Mia pointed, her eyes wide. "It's trying to come through!" All hope seemed threatened by the shadows. "Monstrous shadow looming! We can't let it!" Brat yelled. As everything cracked and pulsed, Anna felt her breath quicken, every heartbeat reminding her of their impending doom. What if this was the moment they lost everything? And then she saw it. The dark figure's mouth stretched wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth gnashing erratically. "Your light is mine!" it roared. They were almost out of time. Where was the strength they needed? What lay beyond the gaping maw of darkness? A desperate thought pierced through Anna's mind. What if they needed to harness the darkness instead of fighting it? "What if we used it against itself?" she whispered, barely audible. Was it reckless? If they turned towards the shadow, could they channel that same darkness to bolster their strength? But as she grasped on to that tangled thought, the tension in the air shifted, and the darkness roared again, the abyss pushing closer, hungry and relentless. Would they summon a greater horror than they already faced? Or could they outsmart the creature feasting on their despair? Just as the walls trembled again, Anna took a step toward the oncoming shadow, the knife gleaming in her hand. It wasn't just about the light anymore. What would happen if they dared to cross that threshold? Anna stood firm, heart racing and resolve stealing in her chest. "We'll face you!" she shouted, the knife trembling in her grip. The swirling darkness that loomed before her pulsed as if it could sense their collective fear. "This is our moment," Mia breathed, her voice a mix of determination and trepidation. She squeezed Anna's shoulder, grounding her amidst the chaos. No more running, no more hiding. Brad's gaze blazed with defiance. He stepped forward beside Anna, ready to confront the shadow that had haunted them for far too long. Taking a breath, Anna closed her eyes for just a moment. Memories of light flooded her mind. The warmth of the sun, laughter shared at the beach, moments of pure joy. Those were the moments that fueled her spirit against the dark. "Together," Anna declared, opening her eyes to meet Brad and Mia's fierce gazes. "When I say now, we turn our fear into power." They nodded, uncertainty braided with unwavering faith. "Now!" they yelled, thrusting their hands forward, channeling their childhood fears and heartbreaks into something fierce.
streaming into the knife's blade until it glimmered like a beacon. The darkness recoiled, hissing angrily. "What do you think you're doing?" But Anna felt the shadows react, pulling back as they transformed. For the first time, the figures of terror writhed, and Anna began to weave a mental tapestry, filling it with the very essence of their combined light and dark, understanding that both sides are intertwined. "Together," Mia echoed, pushing her will against the darkness as the knife glowed brightly. A powerful surge erupted, wrapping around Anna, channeling through every fiber of her being. In that moment, they became a triad of brightness and shadow entwined. As the knife
Glinted, the darkness that had consumed them for so long began to crack, unwinding like fraying cloth, revealing flashes of a tormented past. The ghostly woman reappeared, but this time Anna saw her for what she truly was, not an enemy, but a reflection of every pain, every fear they had avoided. "You are not my master," Anna shouted, wielding her newfound conviction like armor. "You will not take us." The space between them ignited, brighter than the sun, yet darker than despair, illuminating their raw emotions. The shadows thrashed against the light, desperate and wounded. "Your power is nothing," the woman screeched, but Anna pressed forward. "We will transform this fear. No longer will we be prisoners of your shadows." The balance of power shifted, and the knife began to draw shadows towards it, not to consume, but to absorb, guiding the darkness into something whole. The whispers shrieked in agony as their raw energy turned from an anchor to a lifeline. The walls of the cabin shuddered, cracking open with a light that spilled like liquid gold. The woman showed cracks of fear in her hideous facade, her essence distorting as the shadows eclipsed her grip on reality. "What have you done?" Anna felt it deep in her soul. The shadows were no longer a threat, but a tapestry of burdens they could finally release. "You don't own us. We are stronger together." She hurled the knife into the depths of shadow, a lance of light piercing into the heart of despair. A shock wave erupted. Shadows screamed, writhing in retreat, as a blinding explosion sent a wave through the room. Anna braced herself as the darkness began to dissolve, streaming out like a wind chime set free from its chains. "Rise with us," shouted Brad, reaching out his hand. The cabin trembled, walls splintering further, the boundaries between realms collapsing. And then, like a midnight sky starlit with pure light, the shadows evaporated, unfurling into fragments of luminous energy that spiraled into the air, transforming into truths long buried. With a final echoing explosion, the last remnants of darkness shattered. Silence filled the room, heavy but peaceful, layers of fear peeling away. They stood breathless, cocooned in clarity, facing each other amidst the remnants of the nightmare they'd conquered. "Did we do it?" Mia's voice broke the stillness, lowered but charged. "I think we did," Anna breathed, looking around in disbelief. The cabin was dimmer, but it felt lighter. The very air hummed with a new kind of hope. "Together," Brad repeated, his face lit with bewilderment and triumph. "We really did it together." They embraced, their hearts finally free from the suffocating grasp of terror. The long night had ended, and dawn broke through, the light spilling in, casting away shadows. They had faced the darkness within and without, emerging stronger, bonded by the fight to reclaim their truths. As the sun shone brightly over the clearing, they couldn't help but smile through tears. They had survived the darkness, proving that light always finds a way. And in that moment, they knew this was not just their victory. They had transformed their past. They were home in the arms of healing, living witnesses to the power of friendship and the strength that blooms from embracing both sides. But the story didn't end here. New dawns awaited,
and they would continue to shine. As the shadows faded, they vowed to share their wisdom. At that moment, a thrill surged through them. The next chapter begins. Now that you've experienced this thrilling resolution, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now, feed the algorithm, and show your support. I want to fill the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's talk. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let's unleash the power of stories.